Here's a basic descending scale melody. Now, there's nothing really wrong with this kind of melody, but sometimes long scale phrases like this can have a tendency to feel a little bit emotionally bland. But what happens to the emotional profile of this kind of scale phrase if I just add in a few melodic leaps like this? I could also add in a few more leaps like this. I might even play more of a sequenced pattern that is based on leaps, maybe something like this. And finally, what does it feel like when I play a really jagged and angular version of this scale using only leaps like this? It seems crazy, but all of these examples are actually spelled the exact same way. And even though the musical alphabet letters are all the same, each phrase has a distinct personality that comes from a unique combination of pitch direction and pitch distance. This is the emotional power of melodic shape and melodic contour, and it's the topic of today's lesson. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Nate Comp from Dymecast, and today's video is the second episode in our series that focuses on creating expressive melodies using the power of emotional contrast in 7 different simultaneous dimensions. If you missed the first episode, you definitely want to check that one out. It will give you a really good idea of exactly what to expect from this series. In today's lesson, I'm going to show you how to create emotional contrast using variations in melodic shape and melodic contour. And I'll cover some of my favorite practice strategies that you can immediately start to apply to your own playing. All right, let's get right into it. In the previous episode, I mentioned the importance of intentionally practicing specific methods that prioritize the emotional content of musical behavior, because that is how you become more fluent in the musical language of tension and resolution. Before I get into the specifics about practicing the musical dimension of melodic contour, I want to start this lesson with a quick disclaimer. And this is something that applies to everything that I will be showing you throughout this whole series of videos. The insights that I'm going to share regarding emotional contrast are based on my own personal experience playing music for the past 40 years. These are my personal opinions about the emotional content that is communicated by various types of musical behavior. But these observations are by no means rules that you are meant to follow. The best piece of advice that I can give you is this: don't take my word for it, okay? Test this stuff. Come to your own conclusions. If you disagree with something that I say, great. Music is art, and art is subjective, and no two people experience music in exactly the same way, which means that it is up to you to form your own opinions about the emotional content that is contained within these concepts. And it is your responsibility as a developing player to arrive at your own personal understanding of these ideas in a way that resonates with you. My point here is that there is a reason why it's called music theory and not music fact. Okay, on with the lesson. Creating emotional contrast with melodic shape and melodic contour begins with the pitch direction from note to note in a melody, either ascending or descending. For me, when it comes to the emotion of pitch direction, ascending pitch tends to communicate more of a feeling of excitement, right? So traveling higher and higher in pitch. To me, ascending pitch or rising pitch mimics the physical act of standing up, and as a listener, I tend to associate the sound of ascending pitch with a feeling of motion or momentum. Descending pitch, on the other hand, tends to communicate more of a feeling of calm, okay? So when you arrive by descending, okay? Descending pitch or falling pitch is more like a train pulling into the station. And as a listener, I tend to associate the sound of descending pitch with a feeling of arrival or finality or conclusion. One important principle to understand when it comes to pitch direction is the concept of melodic inertia, which is the tendency of a melody to want to keep moving in the same pitch direction. In other words, melodies that ascend in pitch want to just keep ascending, and melodies that descend in pitch want to just keep descending, okay? The problem with melodic inertia, the concept of moving in one pitch direction, is that too much movement in one direction eventually becomes kind of bland or predictable. I've mentioned before that your ears are really good at spotting patterns, and when it comes to recognizing the sound of consecutive notes that are all traveling in the same pitch direction, your ears can identify that kind of pattern really quickly. So if you want to create emotional contrast, you have to interrupt that melodic inertia by intentionally incorporating changes in pitch direction. If you're going down, follow it by going up. And if you're going up, follow it by going down. Okay? When I'm practicing this dimension in my own playing, I'm trying to intentionally focus on creating a balanced melodic contour. A 2015 study published by Frontiers in Psychology found that the reward center in your brain will actually light up when your expectations of a melody are defied. This is exactly why your melodic phrasing needs to have a well-balanced contour that uses a good mix of both ascending and descending pitch motion. You can immediately put this idea to work in your own playing by giving yourself a simple assignment. Write a 4-measure melodic phrase that never travels more than 3 or 4 notes in the same pitch direction before changing pitch direction. When I have my private students intentionally practice their melodic phrasing like this, many of them will comment on how they never really thought too much about this aspect of their playing, but once they understand the power of this kind of balancing act, ascending and descending, the results that they come up with are often quite surprising. The next aspect of creating emotional contrast with melodic contour is the distance in pitch from note to note in a melody. Now, before I get into specifics, here is the second disclaimer for this lesson, okay? You don't have to know a lot of music theory to understand the concept of melodic shape, and you don't have to know how to read music to apply the idea of melodic contour to your own playing. Music theory knowledge and the ability to actually read music notation will certainly help you to internalize these ideas much faster, but it's important to remember that sounds and emotions come first when you are studying music, which means that ear training and emotional training have to come first. And then the language of music theory can come second, okay? With that being said, the one thing that you do need to have is a solid knowledge of your fretboard, okay? When it comes to pitch distance from note to note in a melody, you need to make a very clear distinction between pitch distance and sound that you hear and then physical movement on the actual fretboard. For example, if I'm playing on a single string, small pitch distances or small movements in sound will translate into small physical movements. If I hear an ascending half step, which is a small distance, that's a small physical movement. Or if I hear a descending whole step, which is a small pitch distance, I know that that's going to be a small physical movement. If I'm playing on a single string and I hear a large pitch distance or a large movement in sound, that's going to translate into a large physical movement. So if I hear a melody that goes up 5 half steps, I have to turn that into a bigger physical move. So it's a large pitch distance and it's a large physical movement, okay? But as soon as I start to move across the strings or play in position, all of these relationships completely change. For example, if I'm playing in position across, consecutive strings, small movements in sound actually translate into larger physical movements when it comes to playing a small pitch distance across two adjacent strings. Here is a half step on one string, but here is a half step across two strings. It's a small pitch move, but it's actually a really large physical movement. Now, when you're playing in position across consecutive strings and you hear a large movement in sound, that actually translates into a smaller physical movement when it comes to playing a large pitch distance, but across two adjacent strings, okay? If I was playing on one string and I wanted to navigate the distance of 5 half steps, okay, that's a big physical move and a big sound as far as pitch distance. But what about that across strings, okay? If you don't have a solid understanding of the 4 dimensions of physical movement on the guitar fretboard, check out the video that I did on the scenic route exercise. It's a great way to visualize pitch movement and physical movement and how it works all around the guitar neck. When it comes to creating emotional contrast with pitch distance, you need to be familiar with the language of melodic iteration, melodic steps, melodic skips, and melodic leaps. So let's start with melodic iteration, which is just a really fancy way of saying repeat the same pitch several times in a row. Okay, so the first category of pitch distance in a melody is actually no distance at all. You'll often hear this referred to as static melodic contour because the melody actually isn't even really going anywhere. Check out Neil Young's solo on the song Cinnamon Girl, or the first melodic phrase from the classic bossa nova tune called One Note Samba, and you'll hear some great examples of melodic iteration, which is just repetition of the same note. Next up is melodic steps, and they are exactly what they sound like, okay? A half step pitch distance from one note to the next, or a whole step pitch distance. So this could be an ascending half step, a descending half step, an ascending whole step, or a descending whole step. And of course, you can do this linear or position. Now, all things being equal, stepwise pitch movements are the most pleasing to the ear, and they feel the most musical. The use of small pitch distances or stepwise pitch movements is often called conjunct melodic motion or smooth melodic contour. From an emotional perspective, stepwise pitch movements will contribute more of a connected quality to a melody, making it more relatable or accessible to the average listener. For example, okay, that's the kind of melodic motion that everybody can relate to. So as a general observation, small pitch distances make sense to the average listener. And for many people, the use of stepwise melodic contour is kind of intrinsic to the very notion of what a good melody actually is. And this brings up an important point. One of the greatest compliments that you can give to a fellow guitar player is, wow, you can really make that guitar sing. Well, for the average listener, repeated pitches and stepwise pitch movements are actually the most singable forms of melodic motion. So you need to be aware of that when you are crafting any kind of melodic phrase. Now, when I bring this up to my students, many people think that I'm implying that, oh, you should only ever use repeated notes or stepwise melodic motions, but that's not what I'm saying here. Too much of anything, even stepwise motion, will eventually become bland or predictable. So if you want to create emotional contrast, you have to intentionally create a well-balanced melodic contour and use a mix of repeated notes, okay, stepwise motions, but also you want to combine that with skipping and leaping pitch motions. One additional thing that you need to be familiar with also when it comes to crafting a singable melody is the idea of what is called melodic compass. The compass of a melody is the overall range of a melody from its lowest pitch to its highest pitch. And a good guideline to follow when it comes to melodic compass is to try to keep the height of your melody within the range of 2 octaves or less from bottom to top. You can immediately put this idea to work in your own phrasing by trying to write melodies that stay within that range of 2 octaves or less, and try to write with primarily conjunct motions or smooth melodic contours. Melodic skips are slightly larger than melodic steps, and they are based on the pitch distance of either 3 half steps or 4 half steps. And this could be ascending or descending. So a 3 half step skip up or down, or I could also do a 4 half step skip up or down. Now, the use of skipping pitch movement is often called movement in thirds or tertiary melodic contour. And this comes from the fact that the pitch distance of 3 half steps is a minor third melodic interval, while the distance of 4 half steps is a major third melodic interval. And of course, you can get these sounds through skipping melodic motion either linear or by position. Now, from an emotional perspective, skipping pitch movements are still pleasing to the ear, and they still feel musical for the most part, but they're not quite as conjunct or as connected feeling as stepwise pitch movements. One thing you can try right away in your own phrasing is to follow a skipping pitch movement with a note that sits somewhere in between that skip. For example, if I ascend a minor third skip, I might play the note that's in between that, okay? Or if I'm doing a descending major third skip, I might end on the note that's in between that. This gives you kind of like a surrounding note figure where you're enclosing a target by playing a note on either side of it. As far as my own phrasing, stepwise conjunct motion and then tertiary skipping motion is a big part of my melodic vocabulary. Melodic leaps or melodic jumps are any pitch distance that is larger than 4 half steps. So if I decide to jump 5 half steps or 7 half steps or even 12 half steps, which is a full octave, okay? This can be done linear, this can be done position or diagonally. The use of leaping pitch motion is often called disjunct melodic motion or angular melodic contour or even wide melodic contour, because the pitch distances from one note to the next are so much larger. Now, from an emotional perspective, leaping pitch movements will contribute a much more dramatic or attention-grabbing quality to a melody. Okay, anytime you have large pitch movements, it really kind of sticks out, whether it's ascending or descending. Okay, now when I bring this up with a lot of my students, many people think that I'm implying the idea that, oh, if I want to keep the listener's attention, I should only use a bunch of giant leaping pitch motions and angular contours. But once again, that's not really what I'm saying here. Okay, not only will too much leaping pitch movement in a melody begin to sound kind of disjointed to the average listener, but leaping pitch movement is also the hardest type of pitch motion for the average person to sing along with. So if you want to create emotional contrast, the goal is to intentionally create a well-balanced melodic contour that uses a combination of a few dramatic leaps combined with some more conjunct stepwise motions and also some skipping pitch movements, right? Another thing that you can try right away with your own phrasing is to follow leaping pitch movement with a note that steps in the opposite direction, okay? If I leap up, follow it with a step down. And if I leap down, follow it with a step up. You get this really nice balance of not only a change in direction, but a change in distance. The combination of pitch direction and pitch distance is often referred to as horizontal melody. And the main focus of studying horizontal melody is learning how to map out the pitch movements that connect each word within a musical sentence. When I read the notes on a music staff moving left to right in a horizontal fashion, I'm trying to connect the dots in my mind so that I can immediately see the entire shape and contour of the melody. Now, I mentioned mentioned before that you don't have to know how to read music to apply the idea of melodic contour to your own playing. And here's what I mean by that, right? At the beginning of this video, I had played 5 different melodic phrases, and we had looked at this graphic that had the music staff notation for each example. Well, if I get rid of all of the note names and I get rid of the music staff altogether, you should still be able to visualize the shape that is unique to each phrase. And this is what you are trying to picture in your mind when you are practicing this particular dimension of melodic behavior. I think that the single most important thing to take away from this lesson is this: the only understanding of emotional content that really matters is your own personal understanding, because that is what you are going to use to make great music with. In other words, you need to form your own strong opinions when it comes to what does ascending pitch and descending pitch feel like to you, and what does repeated notes and steps and skips and leaps, what do those things feel like to you? Okay, let me play you one of my favorite melodies and see if you can spot by ear. Where does the melody go up? Where does it go down? What is the overall melodic compass or range of pitch from bottom to top? And where does the melody use repeated notes, steps, skips, and leaps? Okay, so take a listen. When you listen to your favorite players with an ear towards melodic contour and melodic shape, you will realize that the best musicians use this concept in a very intentional way to provoke a wide range of emotions. I was once working on this idea with a student, and he made an interesting comment, which was the fact that nobody ever says, "Wow, nice shapes," when they hear a great melody. But once you become aware of the emotional power that is contained within this dimension of melodic behavior, you will never hear music the same way again. If you have any questions or comments, we would love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this lesson, give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.